It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Yo, hello everybody. How are you guys doing this evening? Hopefully you guys can all hear me well. Hopefully you guys had a happy new year. We had a great one over here, just nice and relaxed, nothing too crazy. So that's always good, right? But I don't know about you guys. I'm like super stoked that everything's over. Like, you know, I totally appreciate and love being around family and having time off, but it just makes everything so chaotic for me. Maybe it's different for me because I'm a business owner, so it just screws up. You know, the last 3 weeks of December are just a nightmare, just trying to organize and orchestrate everything. So it's definitely a challenge. But again, I really appreciated being able to see all the family and everything that you usually do around the holidays. So I do like that part, but I was ready to start today because today was the first day back to like normal work week. You know, as a business owner too, it's kind of stressful for me because I'm taking some vacation time here for the AHR conference at the end of this month. And so that like builds up anxiety, like a knot in my chest, just thinking, okay, I'm going to be taking off, you know, I'm going to be gone for a week. Like, but you know, it's just the little things. I obsess about stuff and I know I have mental problems, but it is what it is. But for those of you that are new in here, you know, my name is Chris. A little bit about myself. I'm an HVACR service technician, business owner, and I make these videos to help out the next guy. Okay. I do want to make something clear though, because I know that I've been getting, YouTube's been recommending my videos to a lot of people that are not in the industry. And I think that's great because I want to share the little bit of knowledge that I have with everybody, but I also want to share with the general public, you know, the kind of stuff that we see and do, so that way they can be a little bit more aware. So I think it's a good idea that, you know, people outside of the industry is watching these videos. But I do want to make one thing clear. In no way, and I don't mean offense to anybody, but in no way are my videos meant to encourage you to try to fix your own equipment, okay? You can do whatever you want to do with your own equipment. That's your prerogative. But my videos are meant for service technicians, okay? And again, I still think they have value to people that aren't technicians. But the comments that I get, I've been getting an influx of them. Like, how come you don't show me how to wire this entire walk-in from start to finish? How come you don't show me all the details, like show me how to set up your torches and all that. Okay, see, that's not what my videos are for, okay? And I don't mean offense, and I don't, I know there's other channels that do that, and that's just not my style, okay? In no way do I want my videos to replace or to take a service technician's job, all right? I just want to be able to share the little bit of knowledge that I have with other techs, and, so I think it's great that other people are watching these, but I also just want to make it clear, and I don't mean to be rude or anything. Okay. I'm just not a DIY channel. That's just not what it is. So I'm not going to tell you, and I can usually tell from the questions, I can tell if it's a technician or not, and I'll answer them, and I try to be polite as possible, but I'm not going to tell you how to fix your equipment. Okay. Because, there's a lot of techs out there, and I want to keep them working. And, we have a very interesting skill set in the HVAC trade. And, I know you guys that are techs that are watching this understand what I'm talking about, okay? So, and I just want to reassure this. I do get comments too from HVACR business owners and service techs saying, you shouldn't be showing that stuff. People are going to try to fix their own thing. I leave out so much in my videos, okay? If someone can figure out how to fix a walk-in cooler from what I show in my videos, they're a pretty smart person, and they were going to do it anyways. So, all right. Another thing that I do want to make clear, it really, really helps us if you guys put your questions in caps lock, okay? We're really, really trying to get to these questions. So please just hit caps lock or hold the shift button down while you're typing, okay? So that way we can try to get to these questions as much as possible, all right? Another little thing, I swear I have to mention this every single stream, but I do, okay, is that, I try to protect my customers. Okay, if you guys think that I work in nasty restaurants, then you guys don't know what nasty restaurants are, because I really don't. And the stuff that you see in my restaurants, yeah, sometimes it might be a little bit gross, but it's actually pretty common amongst all restaurants out there. But for that reason, I'm protecting my customers, and I don't reveal the locations that I work at, okay? So if you guys are trying to guess in the comments, I appreciate it, but I delete those immediately. Those are actually the only comments that I delete. I'll keep criticism in there all day long, but if I see comments right or wrong trying to guess restaurants, I instantly delete them. So if you can, try to remember to keep the restaurant names or the business names or whatever out of the comments. I know that there's other techs out here that watch these, and they know where I'm working. You can tell. If you're a service tech that works in the restaurants, you work in the same ones, you'll know. There's little things that you can tell, and I appreciate the guys that do try to keep that out, okay? All right. So I had a very interesting video that I released yesterday, and I'm going to get to that here in just a few minutes. But I do want to start to talk about something, and I'm going to go ahead and answer a question that came through right now from HVAC Kid, and he asked, why do people hate Danfoss TXVs? What makes them inferior to Sporlan? And I'm going to tell you personally why I don't care for Danfoss TXVs or expansion valves, okay? I just don't like the way that they were designed. And one of the things that I really don't like about their valves is the stainless steel design, the little peanut style. They're super small, okay, at least the ones that I come across. Most of the time, they're not adjustable. I know some of them are, but majority of them are not adjustable. And they had a history a long time ago of, and I'm not going to say that it's the same now, but they had a history of basically just going crazy and not taking adjustments. When I was coming up in the trade, the little Danfoss peanut valves, we called them, man, those things they seemed like they were all over the place, and we could never control superheat. It was just always a nightmare. Now, I will say, to Danfoss's defense, not that I'm going to start using their products, but to their defense, when I was coming up in the trade, we weren't following proper refrigeration practices, okay? But to the same thing, though, I have always liked Sporlan products. They are a sponsor on my YouTube videos. But, guys, you notice I don't have any other sponsors? And that's because I believe in what Sporlan makes, and I believe in their products because I've always used them, okay? And in no way does Sporlan tell me I have to do something or anything like that, okay? So it's not because I'm biased, all right? I've always used Sporlan products, so that's why it's always fit. I've always been a fan of their dryers and their sight glasses, and I just haven't been a fan of Danfoss. But I don't talk crap about them, all right? I usually don't address that too much. I might say, hey, I don't like this Emerson valve or whatever, but I try to keep the negativity out. But there is a general hate in the HVAC industry in the United States for Danfoss products. It's a pretty well-known thing that a lot of people don't like their stuff. I don't know what other people's reasons are, but I've just never had a good experience with them. So, you know, to each their own. I know that they're a huge company around the world and they're very popular, you know, and I know that Sporlan is not as popular in other countries. But, you know, here, I just really like the Sporlan product. So that's my 2 cents on that. Let me see. Definitely got a lot of questions coming through here. Okay. Let me see what we got. Have I ever trained anybody that is completely green, does not even know the basic hand tools? Yes, I have. That came from Rocky. So yeah, I definitely have done that. It has worked out. You know, I mean, I don't still have the people working for us, but we've brought people up. Basically, we hired them off of their people skills and their ability to their mechanical skills, basically. You know, they had nothing to do with HVAC, and 2 of my best employees ever had nothing to do with HVAC when they came to work for us. And, you know, we trained them and they moved up and they moved on. You know, that happens, life happens, and they move on, but they were 2 of my best technicians ever. You know, so yes, we did teach them from the ground up. Sometimes I think that's a better way because you get to train someone the way that you want them to be. I'm really saying a lot, so I got to work on those crutch words, but yeah, so, you know, it's, so there we go again. See, it's a drinking game, guys. Every time I say, take a drink, okay? Let's see. You guys will be drunk really fast, all right? Let me see what else we got going here. There we go again. I'm trying to understand this question. I don't really understand your question, Ramon. If you want to give me some more context, I'll definitely try to get to that, okay? Let me see what else we got. Do I treat apprentices that have more knowledge than... Oh, how do I treat apprentices that have more knowledge than a newer apprentice? I mean, it's all the same, dude. Thank you very much for that super chat, Isaiah. That was really nice of you, bud. Thank you very much, okay? I'm gonna stop. Yeah, this whole thing is getting ridiculous. It's distracting me, so... but no, I don't treat apprentices any different, okay? I try to treat all my employees the same way, okay? Try not to get... Jeff, dude, that's awesome. Thank you very much for that super chat. Isaiah, another super chat. Thank you very much, man. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Could I make a video for tips and tricks on line set running, bending ACR, etc.? Sure. You know, one of the things that you guys have to understand with my videos is I definitely would love to make a video with line set tips. I actually have quite a few videos where I'm talking about bending copper and different things like that. I don't know if I have a full tutorial on it, but it also gets difficult when I have so many videos. I think there's 200 plus videos on there. And so I know that YouTube doesn't have the best way of organizing those videos, so it does make it a little difficult. That's always something I've wanted to try to work on, is organizing somehow. I've thought about creating a website and cataloging the videos on there, so then that way people can search them, you know, and then have links to YouTube or something like that. You know, that's things that I've always thought about doing. You know, speaking of this, actually brings me into a segue. Maybe we could do something like that. Oh, no, we can't actually. No, that wouldn't work on there. But since I'm already going that direction, I'll go ahead and mention it, that myself and a few other YouTube creators have started a Discord server, okay? This is not my big main Discord thing that I have been touting. I still am going to do a private one too, but I've been working on a project with a bunch of other YouTube creators, and it is a Discord server. There's going to be a link in the show notes of this video, guys. When the stream's over, do me a favor, go there, click that link, and you guys can join the Discord server. It's going to be myself and, like I said, a bunch of the other YouTube creators that I find myself to be my internet friends. And, you know, we just kind of go on there, and it's kind of a way to continue the chat that goes on in here, okay? So I'm going to pause on the questions for a little while, guys, and I'm going to go ahead and get to a couple things on my list because I have some things I want to cover, and then we'll get back to the questions and start addressing them, okay? So I already covered what my channel's about, but something that I wanted to talk about, and I get this quite a lot. You know, I read it in Facebook groups, and I want to explain something. You know, as a business owner, we have a lot of things to think about. All right. Not only do we have to worry about the customer, we have to worry about our reputation, we have to worry about liabilities, and we have to worry about our employees. Okay. I don't have this problem with my guys, but I notice a common thread within the social media network, within Facebook, and even some on Instagram too. And I've baited this question by asking little tidbits and seeing what people think. But when it comes to, you know, for instance, we're going to use GPS as an example. When it comes to adding GPS to our vehicles, all right, the amount of hate and distrust that comes from GPS, okay, and or cameras in a vehicle. And I understand, I get the push against GPS. I get the push against cameras, different things like that. I personally don't have cameras in my vehicles, but I know some people do. And there's a reason why, guys, okay? You have to understand something. We have to think about everything as a business. And something that I don't think people put into context when they really think about this, because I know it feels like you're being invaded upon. I know it feels like they're intruding on you. But something that you have to understand, for me, I have a $50,000 to a $60,000 vehicle rolling down the street. All right, driven by a person that I do trust, right? But he's a person, all right? And what happens if he gets into a car accident? I have so much liability on me, millions of dollars in lawsuits potentially. And yes, we have insurance, and every other business should for that reason, but we have to protect our investments, okay? And when it comes to putting something like GPS in a vehicle, and I know that everybody hates, if you do have GPS, to get that email, you were driving 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. I'm sure it's annoying, but you have to remember something. Our insurance rates, our liability insurance rates, our auto insurance rates, all that stuff goes up if you get into a car accident. So if we start to notice habitual driving habits that are bad, it starts to raise a risk for us, okay? And it's not that we don't trust you guys. Everybody's human, all right? Everybody speeds. Everybody forgets to use their blinker, that kind of stuff, right? But if you get pulled over so many times and you get a ticket for that, that affects our insurance rates and things like that, okay? So not that GPS is going to solve all of that, but also GPS is a tool that we use too. And I know people say nobody uses GPS for a tool, but yes, we do, all right? I think we have GPS, and it's not in our vehicles, it's actually in our phones at my company. And we've used GPS more than we've ever had. I think we might have looked at GPS like maybe 2 or 3 times and noticed that someone was doing 100 miles an hour in a vehicle, okay? That's not okay, by the way, to be doing 100 miles an hour in that service vehicle because of the huge liability you create for the company, okay? I know I'm kind of going off on a rant here, but I just got to express to people that when it comes to, you know, things that you think are intruding on your personal space, it's really not when you think about the fact that you're driving a company vehicle and that company is on the line, not necessarily you. Because, you know, a company has insurance, I can almost guarantee a hell of a lot more insurance than you have on yourself. So when that $2 million lawsuit or $3 million lawsuit comes through because you got into an accidental car accident that wasn't your fault and someone died, guess what? You don't have enough money, so they're going to come after the company. So that's why we have to be worried and we have to pay attention to driving habits and different things like that. And guys, this is not coming from my company problems. We don't have these issues, right? But I'm just bringing this up because I read this in the Facebook groups and I thought it was just, you know, I felt like I needed to address it, okay? So I'm definitely going to get to some more of the chat. And let's see. Yeah, everything's expensive on work vans, you know? I see, you know, yeah, it just, you know, service in general, suspension, you know, it all happens, okay? So, you know, just try to take it easy and try to think about the business too, instead of getting upset about certain things. And I'm not saying you guys aren't justified, all right? Because, you know, yeah, sometimes people do feel invaded upon for certain things. I understand the argument of a camera pointing at you all day. I get that one. That one does sound strange, but there is a justification for that too. I'm not saying that I'm going to do it, but I'm not saying someone's bad for doing it. Maybe it's just an accident camera. Maybe it's, you know, for liability reasons, or who knows, you know? So, all right, let's see what we got inside here. I know we're missing some questions, but I'm going to definitely try to get to them, okay? Let's see. Have I ever heard of discharging a capacitor with DC volts on a multimeter? Randy, no, I don't know that I've ever heard of that, using a multimeter. I don't know that I have. I mean, honestly, I've only heard of people discharging capacitors by shorting them, or, you know, I've always thought that you could use a multimeter. I mean, I guess that makes sense. So, Joe, thank you very much for that super chat. I really appreciate it, bud. And yeah, guys, if you could, please hit the like button. It definitely helps out the stream, okay? It really does. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, that's really awesome. All right, let me see what else I got in here. What information or criticisms would I give to anyone trying to go out on their own? Brandon, great question, Brandon. If you're going to go out on your own, good for you, man, right? I'm assuming, and again, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm assuming that you're a full-fledged service technician and you know your way around the industry, right? Because that's the best bet to do it, all right? If you're going out there and you're not quite confident in what you're doing, I think you might run into some problems. I would highly, highly suggest that you take some business classes, all right? There's a lot more to this than just going out there and starting to charge customers, all right? And another thing, again, I am not a business person, all right? I'm not super smart with that stuff, but don't take out tons of debt to start a business, guys. That gets you into trouble, all right? I know it's almost impossible to do a completely debt-free business, but if you can, do it. Do not go take out giant, giant loans, especially when you're starting. Oh my gosh, that's so dangerous, guys. What happens? I mean, we're on the brink of all kinds of financial chaos at any given moment these days. So if you go take out a giant business loan and then the economy tanks, holy moly. Yeah, it's a gamble. It's kind of like playing the lottery. It might work. There's a lot of people that it has worked for, but maybe you're going to be the one guy that it doesn't work for. So again, I am not the financial expert or anything, but if I could encourage anybody to do anything is don't go into debt to start a business. Be very cautious. If you are going to go into debt, maybe you have a family member or someone that can help you out, but man, it's very dangerous taking out business loans and stuff to start a business. But again, okay. All right, let me see what else. What would I expect the average lead installer to be making in Florida? At least 50K. Oh, that's Smith. I honestly don't know, bud. I am not in the Florida market. There might be some guys in here. I'm in Southern California, so the economy is totally different out here, guys. So, all right, let's see. Let me see. All right, so that's it on that one. Let me go ahead and go back to my list and see what else we got. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about this, the elephant in the room, right? Now, my video yesterday, the R290 video, guys, that was a one that I've been working on and talking about for a very long time. Isaiah, thank you very much for becoming a member of my channel. That was really awesome of you, bud. So I released a video, and the reason why I made this video, I want to preface this, okay? I read a lot of comments and different things on social media when R290, hydrocarbon refrigerant, R600, all of those started becoming very popular in the United States. Okay, for those of you that are watching internationally, the hydrocarbon refrigerants kind of just became mainstream in the last 5 years, and they really ramped up in the last 2 years out here in the United States. So almost all of the reach-in, if not all of the reach-in refrigerators that are being shipped to restaurants these days are going to be made with a hydrocarbon refrigerant, all right? Whether it be R600 or R290. Most of them are R290. A lot of the R600s are on the domestic residential refrigerators, but in the commercial restaurants, we're seeing R290 like crazy, and a lot of people are afraid of it. And I get it. There's some safety practices you have to follow when you're working on R290, guys, all right? The biggest thing, if anything, is that you purge the system with nitrogen before you do anything, all right? And remember that R290 is unodorized, 98% pure propane. So it's not barbecue propane, right? There's no smell to it because the barbecue crap that's in the Blue Rhino tank in your backyard, they add a smell to it for safety reasons. But that odorant causes a lot of problems, and it's a contaminant. So you don't want that in our refrigeration systems because of the different stuff that's going on in our systems. The refrigerants are changing states and all kinds of things, and that's a chemical that they add to it. So we don't use that. It's one thing on the barbecues because we're just burning that off. All right. So this unodorized propane, it can be dangerous in the wrong hands or in certain situations. So there's certain procedures you have to follow, but it's really not that big of a deal, guys. It really isn't. I've got a couple videos on it. Just purge with nitrogen, have a fire extinguisher handy. You know, the really interesting thing, if you don't already know, R290 does not have to be recovered, meaning that you can vent it into the atmosphere legally. And that's a whole trip too, because we're so used to recovering all of our refrigerant and disposing of it at supply houses, right? But R290, you just vent it. But it also does create some issues because can you vent it in the restaurant? You have to make sure it's a well-ventilated restaurant. Is there an exhaust fan or something nearby to pull the stuff out? So anyways, one of the biggest things that I hear about R290 is people saying, oh, that stuff's junk. It's crap. You shouldn't use it. I just pull it out and put R134A in there. And right off the top of the bat, I knew that that wouldn't work, all right? Because if anybody's ever seen an R290 system, everything is smaller. It's just not designed for R134A, all right? So I know that there's other refrigerants that it might work better, and I know that I could make it work, right, by tweaking some things, by changing the expansion valve, by doing stuff like that. Decrepit Plumber, thank you very, very much for that super chat, bud. That is awesome. Thank you, bud. So I know that there was things I could have done to my system, but I wanted to pose or to perform the experiment that I've heard everybody, not everybody, but so many people tell me they did, and it worked with flying colors. And that was to simply remove R290 and put 134A in the system, all right? The two gases are totally different refrigerants, right? Different pressures, different saturation temperatures, totally different. But I went ahead and did that. But to be fair, I made sure that I had a clean and dry system. I made sure there was no propane left in the system. You guys saw by purging it with nitrogen, pulled a proper evacuation, and then I went ahead and weighed in new refrigerant just to be 100% sure that it had the factory charge in it. And when I did that, I let it run, and then we took some tests. I verified with the factory charge of R290 first, what the vital signs of the system were, what the evaporator TD was, what the condenser TD was, and I tried to mimic those with 134A, and it failed miserably. What ended up happening was, in order to get my subcooling numbers somewhat where they were, I think I got it to like 8 degrees subcooling maybe. I think in the other one was close to 15 or something like that. My expansion valve basically was non-adjustable, and it was basically flooding back to my compressor, and I had, you know, very, very low superheat at the compressor, which was causing the compressor to not work correctly, which inevitably caused the system to not work correctly too. So I basically followed what I thought anybody else would do, you know, just by winging it and seeing what would happen, and the experiment failed. I will say that I know that if I took some refrigerant out, that it might work half-ass, all right? But it wouldn't work properly. And that was the point I was trying to make, guys, is that, yes, I can make almost anything work. If you take some gas out, you tweak it, those numbers look okay, you know, it's kind of working, but it's half-ass, all right? And I'm not judging you guys. I know some of you have done the experiment, but I mean, plain and simple, as a business owner, I can't have my technicians out there re-engineering refrigerators when I'm going to be the one to go out and have to financially warranty that equipment. When a compressor fails because it's flooded back and there's no oil left in it. And then guess what? When you wash oil out of a compressor and it goes into the condenser or the evaporator, how do you get that oil back? Is the technician going to know the oil's gone, or is he just going to go in and change the compressor and put a new compressor in? And now we have double the oil charge in that system. And then maybe that oil will come back. But guess what? If all that oil comes back and makes it into that compressor again, then the compressor is going to have too much oil and it's going to fail. How many times do you think this process is going to go? So that was the point I was trying to prove. All right. Again, I know R22 would have been a better choice. 407A would have been a better choice. All these different refrigerants. Or if I would have taken the expansion valve and put in a new expansion valve, the whole point that I was trying to make was that if you simply dropped in 134A, it would not work. All right. And I kind of explained some things in the video too. I was thinking about something. I was trying to think about the arguments that I might get. All right. And again, I know I see comments coming through. I haven't really gotten to them yet, but I will look back and we'll get into them. Okay. I know that I was trying to anticipate arguments. All right. And I was, the one argument I thought in my head that someone might raise is, well, you're using alternative refrigerants for R22, so why not use an alternative refrigerant for R290? Well, in fact, actually, I don't use any alternative refrigerants for R22. So again, that was my argument that I made up in my head. Nobody said it to me. But I do realize that there is alternative refrigerants for R22, and that's because it's being phased out. All right? R290 is not being phased out. I also saw an interesting argument, and this was a good one, actually, and this one had merit, and it was from someone saying, you know, I work in, I want to say he might have said Chicago or something, or he worked in a big city where he works in a lot of high-rise buildings, and he just thought it was a liability, you know, to have flammable refrigerants in the region. I get it. But you know what? Yes, I guess I see some of the argument there, but first, let's say something, right? What do you need to have a fire? You need oxygen, you need a spark, and you need fuel, okay? So a compressor is not going to magically get the perfect amount of oxygen and the perfect amount of fuel in it and have a spark all at the same time because it's a sealed system. Even if the compressor had an internal ground, theoretically, if all proper refrigeration practices were followed, there's no oxygen inside that system. It's not going to combust and explode, all right? Now, if someone doesn't follow proper refrigeration practices, yeah, sure, some weird crap can happen, okay? Now, I can maybe see a terminal vent, all right? If you have a terminal vent, then you have flammable vapor and hot oil blowing out. I've seen a flame come out of a compressor that's just 404A on a terminal vent. It happens, all right? Thank you very much for that super chat, Haseen. I don't know how to pronounce your name, bud, but thank you very much. So I have seen a terminal vent on a non-flammable gas. So yes, I do agree that's an interesting argument. But I will say, for the most part, compressors typically don't have terminal vents, okay? Proper preventative maintenance can prevent overheating issues, can prevent dirty oil and different things like that. Another thing to think about too, it's not us that's choosing to use these flammable refrigerants, right? We're just doing what we're told by Big Brother, by the government, by whoever decided to make these, global warming police, the hippies, whatever, right? I'm not really going to fight it as a business owner. It is what it is. It sucks. Yeah, we got to jump through extra hoops, but guess what? We're getting paid for it. We're making money, right? I'm billing for my time, so it is what it is. That's the way I see it. That's the way I approach it, okay? But I'm not trying to say that you're stupid or you're wrong if you think that, blah, 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 blah. I'm just saying these are my opinions, guys, all right? All right, let's see what I'm missing in here. See what questions I've missed. And I definitely have some more things I want to cover, but I'll get to these right now. Let me see. Okay. So I'll address this one right now too. Isaiah, you asked me this one. You said, can I do a 134A to 407F conversion? Okay. So, and I actually got that a bunch. People saying, you know what, it'd be an interesting experiment to see you doing this or doing that. And okay, I like doing those experiments and they're fun. And honestly, I might try to do one of those experiments. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to ever encourage someone to try to experiment with things and potentially cause damage. One thing I will tell you is I will never, ever, for liability reasons, put R290 in a system that was not designed for R290. I've had people ask me that so many times in the last 2 days. Why don't you, I would like to see an experiment where I take R22 out and put R290 in. Oh, hell no. Okay. Not until someone tells me I can, because there's too much liability on my side to do something like that. And Isaiah, I might do that, and I was starting to address this earlier too, is my videos really aren't, for the most part, things that I can plan. I mean, this was an interesting one because it just so happened that I got a refrigerator, and I'll explain that story right now too. But I don't really go out there thinking, okay, I'm going to go to this restaurant and I'm going to make a video on this today. I mean, it kind of just falls in my lap. I get a service call, I turn on my camera and I start talking. All right. That's kind of how my videos are formed. So to explain the question that I got a bunch of times, how did I get that reaching? Right? It's a brand new refrigerator. Why did the customer throw it away? It's a $4,000 refrigerator. Why did they throw it in the trash? And I'm going to tell you, when you deal with corporations, it's kind of funny, but corporate money, corporate finance is kind of silly. It was easier for that person or the person at the company that ordered that refrigerator to have me throw it away than to do the paperwork for the mistake that they made. And that's how corporate money works sometimes. It's not something I'm going to sell. I can't do that. I can't, in good conscience, turn around and try to sell that refrigerator. All right. Because they purposely asked me to dispose of it. I'm not going to benefit from their mistake. But in a situation like this, I can experiment on it. Heck yeah. All right. Or I can donate it to a school or something like that. Heck yeah. But I can't turn around and sell it. I'm not going to try to profit off of someone's mistake like that. No, it's too much of a liability. And, if the customer caught wind of me trying to sell the refrigerator, that's just not good. It's not worth it. But yeah, it is interesting how corporate finance works. Someone made a mistake. And then by the time, and if you break it down, they sent the refrigerator there. By the time we got someone to repackage it back up, because it was on a pallet and, it was all shrink wrapped and taped and all kinds of weird crap. By the time you got that package back up, then getting it back to them, it would probably cost more than it cost to make that thing, to ship it back. That's another thing too. I've had manufacturers mistakenly send the wrong equipment and they'll just tell you to throw it away. Hell, I even had a Lennox air conditioner one time, a 7.5 ton Lennox air conditioner that was accidentally shipped to us with no heat. It was basically a straight cool Lennox package unit, and we ordered a gas heat model. They told us to throw it away. 7.5 ton Lennox package unit, and this was probably in the early 2000s. So that just shows you it just wasn't worth the shipping cost to get it all the way back to them, so they'd rather just get rid of it. So funny how that stuff works. All right, and let me see what I'm missing in here. What made me get into HVAC? That's a good question. So my father. My father's done air conditioning and refrigeration since I was a little kid. I grew up in the trade, and I decided to come work for him one day. It took a couple years. Jeff, dude, you're awesome, man. Really, really appreciate it, bud. All right, let me see what else I got in here. Do I have any other videos dissecting units like that, Dellfield? No, not yet, Storm, but that is something I can definitely do that a little bit more when I come across an interesting reach-in refrigerator, because with some of the restaurant chains we work for, we probably install 2 to 3 reach-ins a week, so we're throwing things away left and right. So if I come across another interesting one, sure, I'll dissect it. But no, that was the first time I ever dissected, and that was from a couple weeks ago. I dissected a Dellfield reach-in that I was very curious about how it was made. And, you know, it's funny because I have probably about 6 compressors on the side of my house, too, that I brought home with me that I want to dissect, you know. And I think I've showed these a million times, but I have a bunch of Sporland valves that I decided to dissect with my bandsaw so I can see how they work, and took them apart. I probably showed these a trillion times, but a head pressure control valve and different things like that. I got all kinds of stuff. So we'll definitely try to show some of that stuff a little bit more for sure. Let me see what else I got on my list. All right. Any new videos on the new channel? Great question. So I am working on a new YouTube channel, guys. There's a Nightbot, or my moderator bot or whatever, keeps posting a link, or if it hasn't already, I'm sure it will, about a new channel called HVACR Tools. I have not released a video yet, but they are coming very soon. I am working on them. I told you guys I would do it the first of the year. They should be here anytime. Still working on them, but I wanted to get this R290 video done first. The first couple videos is going to be, I've been reviewing thermal imaging cameras. So I've got 3 thermal imaging cameras that I purchased and I've been using. So I'll be doing a video on that. And then the next video, or one of the 2 videos that I'll release, and then the next one will be a video on some work pants. I took kind of a poll and had been asking in the Facebook groups about the most popular types of work pants and what people liked. And I was just curious because I wanted a change. And so I ordered probably 5 or 6 of the most popular brands of work pants, and I tried them out for, like, between all the pants, I've been doing a test for about 6 months. And I came to a clear winner, and I'll talk about those too, and the things that I like and dislike. And it's going to be things like that where I think that, like, I'm just going to share my knowledge. It's not going to be like people are sending me tools every day and I'm doing reviews on them. I just want to do it my way. It's going to be kind of my style of stuff. So that'll be coming soon. I talked about it earlier. I'll talk about it again. We started a Discord server, myself and a bunch of other YouTube creators. There'll be a link in the show notes of this video for that Discord server. It'll be like the chat that's going on right now. You guys will be able to come over and we'll be able to talk just like we're talking in the chat. You'll be able to have access to myself and a bunch of other YouTube creators. So please come check it out. It's free. It's not anything that costs you any money or anything like that. So it'll just be a place where we can all sit and talk and, you know, be able to communicate, and you guys can ask questions. So let me see what else I got in here. Am I going to the Manitowoc Advanced Factory Training in February? No, I am not. I've always wanted to go to the Advanced Factory Training. I've never done it, but no, I will not be doing that. Because I'm going to the AHR show, it kind of limits me on being able to do anything else in February, because I'm already going to be taking a week off at the end of January, beginning of February. And also, I really, really wish I could make it to the HVAC Educators Conference in Vegas this year too. But that one's awfully close to the AHR show, so I don't know if I'll make that one either. But that one's probably, if I had to choose anything between AHR and the HVAC Educators Conference, I want to go to both of those so bad. So, all right, let me get to my list here and see what else we got. A million times, and I kind of covered this already, but in the R290 video where I converted to 134A, I do want to make it clear that that system had a non-adjustable R290 expansion valve. So it was not fixed orifice. So that's why I couldn't adjust the valve and make it work better or anything. Great question that I had just before the stream, and it was relating to an older video, but I talk about this all the time, is how in the heck can I tell what the liquid level is in a receiver tank when it's sealed? And that's a really good question, but it's pretty simple. All that I do is I pump the receiver down. So I trap the refrigerant on the king valve, between the king valve of the receiver and between the discharge reed in the compressor. all right? And it's trapped in between those two places. So it's usually in the compressor, in the condenser, and it stops at the receiver. Well, when you do that, the refrigerant's going to turn back into a liquid, majority of it, and it's going to fill up that receiver. And so then if you have a receiver full of liquid, all you have to do is take a heat producing device that doesn't exceed the temperature, the safety limit temperature of the receiver. And if you pass that heat producing device up and down a couple times, you can actually take your fingers on the back of the receiver. Hold on. So this is a receiver, right, that I've cut open. But if you take that heat producing device, you can actually take your fingers and run them. And even though this is a sealed tank, where you feel the temperature change is where the liquid level is, because you would have vapor up here and potentially liquid right here. Well, obviously the vapor is going to be a lot hotter and it's going to take a lot more to boil that liquid off. So you'll usually feel it'll be cool, 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 and then it'll get red hot. There's your liquid level. That's all you got to do to find the liquid level in a receiver. All right. All right. Let's see what else I got on my list here to talk about. When will I do another Saturday live stream? That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't have any plans to do it right now, but you know, the whole point of the Discord server is maybe people can have access on there because we can do audio chats and different things like that. But maybe we'll do another stream. It just depends. I definitely need some more organization. I kind of winged that Saturday live stream that I did a while back, and I definitely want to try to find a way to organize that a little bit better. So. All right, great question I had from someone in emails, actually. And he was asking me about when doing a leak check on a refrigeration system, if there was any tips that I had to find leaks better. And I do. I have lots of interesting tips to help people to find refrigerant leaks better. The biggest thing I can tell you is, first off, all of the equipment needs to be turned off, right? Condensing unit, turned off. Evaporator, fan motors turned off. Don't be trying to leak check with an electronic leak detector with the evaporator fan motors off. All right. Excuse me. With my Coke nose starting to itch. With the evaporator fan motors turned off. All right. And then the next thing that I'm going to do, make sure that the system was calling before you turned it off. Right. And so what happens if you have a walk-in cooler, that's a remote system, the compressor's on the roof, and you go to do a leak check on it, but it was pumped down. If it was pumped down, then that means the refrigerant was stopped behind the king valve on the receiver or behind a valve somewhere in the liquid line, a solenoid valve or something. And if that's the case, then you're going to have an extremely low pressure in the suction line. So if the system is pumped down, what I suggest you do is obviously turn the system off and open up your gauges, the high side and the low side, and let the pressures equalize between the high side and the low side. What you will do is you will build up equal pressure on both sides of the system, and then you can do a better leak check. Now, if that pressure is not enough, then sometimes what we'll have to do is remove all the refrigerant from the system, put a tracer amount of refrigerant, usually, you know, whatever refrigerant you have, a tracer amount, and then bump it up with nitrogen. That's another, but that's a last ditch effort because that requires a lot of effort of changing filter dryers and different things like that. Okay. But yeah, definitely turning the system off, making sure all the evaporator fan motors are off, make sure all the condenser fan motors are off, let the system sit, equalize the gauges out, let the pressure sit there for a little while, then hit it with your electronic leak detector. I'm not a fan of attacking and looking for a leak with just soap bubbles. Guys, grab an electronic leak detector. All right. They're cheap enough now. You can find all kinds of different brands. I use a D-Tech Select. It's not the most expensive leak detector, but it's certainly not the cheapest, but it is a great leak detector. I've used a D-Tech Select for at least easy 10 years, at least. Not the same one, but I mean, you know, they're great leak detectors. I would love to get my hands on the D-Tech Stratus. It looks really cool. The verdict is out on how awesome it is, but I do know that my buddy Ruben has the Infocon D-Tech Stratus, whatever thing. Ruben, how are you liking that, whatever that thing's, Infocon Stratus or whatever it's called? I don't know why I just had a brain fart, but I know I saw a post with you using it or something. So I have an ultrasonic leak detector, right? I've actually been reviewing one. I borrowed one from someone and I've been trying it out. The verdict is not out on the ultrasonic yet. I definitely see a use for it, but again, I'm not going to spoil the beans on that one yet, but I have used them before. But I do not suggest, okay, guys, there's nothing worse when I hear someone that's just going to attack a leak with just soap bubbles. Oh my gosh, you're going to be there for hours trying to find a leak with soap bubbles only, okay? Please, please, please What I do is I start with an electronic leak detector. When I start picking up hits, then I hit it with the big blue leak detector fluid, soap bubble stuff in the spray bottle. Make sure the stream is bubble free, spray it on there and let it sit, and you'll find the leak. But use the electronic to narrow down the leak, or use an ultrasonic or whatever, okay? Let me see what else. Right on. Yeah, Ruben says that the DTEC Stratus. There you go. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but the DTEC Stratus was really cool. So that's awesome. I like it. I like the cool appeal of the DTEC Stratus is that it has the PPM readout on it, so it can tell you when you're, like, if you're using an electronic like the DTEC Select, you walk into a walk-in and it goes crazy, and you're like, okay, and then you have to wait for it to zero out, and then it goes crazy again, and it's like, oh my gosh, this leak is so big. You know, with the one with the PPM readout, or the parts per million readout, theoretically, you can look at it and say, okay, it's getting bigger as I get closer. It's getting bigger and bigger. It's not just an audible sound. It's a numerical readout. So that's an awesome selling point of, you know, a PPM readout on it. All right, let me see what else I have. I already covered that. I'm making sure I'm going through my list of different things. I covered this, and I want to stress it again, guys. Just because you're working on R290 refrigerant, it's not going to blow up, but you still need to follow some safety practices, okay? I have showed in several videos where I had an R290 system and I was changing a compressor on it, and I removed the compressor. It had been sitting out of the system for 10, 15 minutes. And I think I even purged nitrogen, if I remember right, through the system. And then I went to go braze, and I took my torch and I took it by one of the lines, and there was still flammable vapors in there that lit. There wasn't nitrogen in it at the time, but I had purged it with nitrogen, but still there was flammable vapors in there. So remember that the refrigerant vapors will get stuck in little pockets of oil all over the place. So the biggest thing when working with R290 is purging your systems properly, okay? All right, let me see what we have in far as questions go. What is the valve under the voltmeter? Oh, I'm going to tell you right now, I have no flipping idea what that thing is. Hold on just a sec. This, yeah, I'm not even going to start talking about this. Sporlin sent it to me. It's a supermarket valve. I do not even have the slightest bit of idea. I'm sure you guys in the chat can tell me. I don't use this. It's a hot gas bypass valve, huh? Yeah, it's a SHGBE. Oh, no, it's a discharge bypass valve. That's what it is. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't use these. Sporlin sent it to me to cut it open. I just haven't cut it open yet. So, yeah, beyond me, don't work on these at all. So, let me see what we got in here. All right. Cool. We got that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get to some more of your guys' stuff in the chat. So do me a favor, put the questions in caps lock, and we're going to start attacking those right now. Okay. What is the oldest RTU unit I have worked on? The oldest air conditioning system that I worked on was probably, I can remember it. It was a unit that I removed. It was from 1964, if I remember right, because I think it was the year my dad was born. So it was 1964, I think. I removed it about 15 years ago. It lasted for many, many years. It's very sad that we can't install an air conditioner today that's going to last 30 plus years. There's no way in heck. You know, it's just sad the way they make equipment. But yeah, that was probably, it was a 1960s unit. It was the oldest thing I've ever worked on. So let me see what else we got in here. I really appreciate all the nice comments I see in there, guys. And, you know, something to understand too, guys, I try to get to all your guys' comments that you leave in YouTube and Facebook, but it's like, it's so overwhelming. There's so many comments. So I'm not trying to be rude if I don't get to your guys' comments. That's why it's best if you guys have questions, send them in an email. It's best to get emails for sure. My email is hvacrvideos@gmail.com. The Streamlabs bot should be posting it. It's in the show notes of this video. And guys, there's always super valuable information in the show notes of my videos. Always go check out the show notes. There's always good stuff inside there. I usually put tool links and all kinds of stuff. You know, ways to help me out. You know, you guys don't have to super chat. You don't have to do anything like that. There's affiliate links in the bottom of my videos, like Amazon links. All you got to do is click one of those links, even if you don't buy the tool. Buy something else from Amazon. I get credit for like the next 24 hours if you just click my link. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and it does support the channel too, so that definitely helps. Let's see what else. Difference in restaurant and supermarket refrigeration. What is the difference, I'm assuming, is your question? That, I mean, it's the size of the equipment. I mean, the principles are still the same, but you know, there's going to be extra components added to the system. I do not do supermarket or industrial, so I'm not a expert in that, but I do have a general understanding that, you know, you're going to be much more concerned about efficiency, about not wasting any kind of energy. You know, so you're going to have energy conservation devices going on. You're going to be trying to reheat water. You're going to be using hot water from you're going to be heating water up. You're going to be doing all kinds of stuff to try to save energy, because I do know that the bottom number with supermarkets is you know, they're trying to save money so they can make a profit, basically. So, but there's other channels that deal with supermarket refrigeration and stuff. Check out those channels. Definitely will help you out with that stuff. All right, let me see what I'm missing on here. What was my favorite thing to work on? Favorite thing to work on? That's a good question. I mean, just in general, I love doing piping. I love brazing. I love doing line sets, you know, constructing things. I will say one of my favorite things to do is I do work for a stainless steel fabricator. It's a big giant shop, and they build kitchens basically out of stainless steel. It's a huge shop. And I do a lot of refrigeration work. In the past, I've done even more, where they built entire restaurants. And it was really cool because they'll build custom fabricated stainless steel counters and different things and cabinets and refrigerators. And then they asked me to come in and put equipment in it. And just designing and working with blueprints and fabricating and then having to bend copper and, you know, and to see a finished product be taped up with that horrible plastic tape, the laser tape that they put on stainless steel, but having them put the laser tape on there and, you know, package something up and shipping it off is really satisfying. So that's probably one of my favorite things to do, is when I get to custom design things and build things. I still do work for them, but we haven't done anything really big because they haven't had much of that work lately. But it is always fun to be able to go in there and you sit in there and you work. You basically work there for like 2 weeks, and they have refrigerators, and you know you do something, and then they have to build more stainless, and they build the box around your equipment. It's a lot of fun. So that's probably one of my favorite things to do. Let's see. What is the hottest temp I saw on a condenser? I don't know about the hottest temp I saw on a condenser, but I will say the hottest temp I've ever worked in, it hit 120 degrees at my house 2 years ago in like July. 120 degrees outside air. And that was while I was driving down the road with my thermometer out the window. So it was probably hotter if you stopped, but 120 degrees. And then I will regularly work in the summertime out in the Coachella Valley, where it just gets stupid hot and stupid humid, where it's 120 degrees and you have 40% humidity. And it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, you have to like constantly be taking water breaks and stuff. But I don't know about the hottest temp on a condenser. That's hard to say. Let's see. Do I work on racks? I work on just the basic racks. I don't work on supermarket rack systems, no. But I work on multiplex racks where I have a restaurant that has a small refrigeration rack on the roof that controls, you know, 30 pieces of equipment downstairs. Yeah, I do work on those, but nothing too crazy. I've worked on a few, you know, small chiller systems. Like they were refrigeration racks that Hvacr made, and they were basically small chillers, and they were pumping glycol all over the place with pumps. I've worked on those before, but I've never worked on any big supermarket stuff. Nothing like that. So, all right, let's see. What is my name? My name is Chris. How long did it take for me to get used to Measure Quick with the field piece probes? So that's a great point, and I want to talk about that. And that's something that I'll talk about on my new channel too. But Measure Quick is a great app. If you guys don't know what it is, it's an app that works with field piece probes, with testo probes. That's what I really like about the Measure Quick app. It's not just dependent on one set of tools. So the cool thing is you can mix and match. If you like I happen to like most of all the products that Field Piece makes, or most of them. But the cool thing about Measure Quick is if you like Field Piece pressure probes, but you like testo hydrometers, then you can use both of them, you know, so you can mix and match. You can use, I think you can use the Sporlan Smart probes. Last I heard, I think, or maybe soon you can use those. You know, so that's one thing I like about Measure Quick. But Measure Quick basically consolidates all the information and gives it to you in one package. Now, it also has diagnostic tutorials, and it helps you to diagnose things. Personally, not putting myself up on a horse, I really don't use the diagnostic stuff so much in Measure Quick, as much as I just use the digital display with all the information in one place, so that I can look at it and say, okay, this system has airflow problems, this system has this, has that. But as far as getting used to Measure Quick, it is a learning curve. I will say that they've been working on making it easier, but you do have to understand technology, and there's some quirks that you have to get past. Working with the field piece probes, I would argue that Measure Quick actually makes the field piece probes better, believe it or not. There's little nuances that they do in Measure Quick that actually makes the field piece probes work better than with the field piece app. So that's an interesting thing. All right, let's see what else. Let me see what I'm missing here. How do I find out compressor horsepower rating on smaller condensing units? You're going to have to ask the Google on that. So there's lots of great numbers on that condensing unit or that compressor. Input them into the Google search box and ask the Google, and it'll tell you all kinds of stuff, okay? Do I have any good book recommendations? I certainly do. My favorite book to recommend to anybody that is doing commercial refrigeration work is called Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians by Mr. Dick Wirz, W-I-R-Z. It is a great book. Got it right here. I don't think they have an updated version at this time. This is a great book. It's not too thick. It's packed full of great value. Lots of good information in there. Definitely a good book. Now, it goes through the fundamentals, but that book is made for an air conditioning technician that wants to become a refrigeration technician. It goes deep on controls and different defrost strategies and different stuff like that. All right. I believe there's a link to that book in the show notes too of this video. All right, let's see what else. What makes me decide when to replace only the TXV power head versus the whole valve? That's a great question. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're working on a Sporlan TXV, if the system is not plugged up with crap, if there's a problem with the valve, majority of the time, the problem is the power head. This is a Sporlan expansion valve. The power head can lose its charge, and then typically the valve will slam shut and not let refrigerant through, but it's also possible for it to lose part of its charge, and then goofy things start happening. For the most part, there's not much to fail inside a thermostatic expansion valve, all right? There's a couple parts. There's a spring. There's a couple push rods. There's really not much to it. I don't know that the camera's going to focus on that. Now, this one's a flare valve. This one should have a strainer on it. So what I would say is if you're working on expansion valves and you're having expansion valve problems, first thing, check the strainer. Most of the times they have a strainer on them. You can clean the strainer. The next thing, especially if the valve slams shut, you can usually change the power head. Now, here's what I would do. If I walk up to a Sporlan expansion valve and I want to know, is it the valve or is it just the power head? First off, talk to your supervisor, talk to your manager. Maybe they don't want you to just change the power head, okay? But what you can do is if you think that you're going to have to change that valve, all you got to do, and if you have a power head, you got to have one with you, walk up and clip the tip, cut the power head off. You should hear the gas charge blow out. Psst. It's not loud, but it's a sound you can't quite miss. It goes tss, it sprays out. If you don't hear anything spray out, it's pretty good odds that you have a bad power head and you can get away with more than likely just changing the power head. You were going to change the valve anyways, right? But don't go clipping power heads, right? Just because. But once you clip it, you have to change it. But if you want to know, is it just the valve or is it the power head? Go clip the tip on the power head, right? But the biggest indication of a bad power head is going to be when the valve is slammed shut and it doesn't allow a refrigerant through it. That's going to be the most common thing that's going to happen on those. It is possible for you to catch it every once in a while when it's only got partial charge in there and it will act kind of funny. It won't react, different things like that. But that's the most common thing that I find that's wrong with an expansion valve is there's really not a whole lot to go bad inside those things. So it's usually plugged up strainer because of contamination or a bad power head is majority of the problems I see. All right, let me see. Let me see. Yeah, I wish I could talk about racks, guys, but yeah, I can't. Yeah, HVACR tech says you can put your hand on the bulb. That is a method too. Sporlan has some troubleshooting guides that they would tell you, but pulling it out and seeing if the valve opens and closes. Yeah, that does work, but if the valve's not working at all, it's gonna be a power head thing. 99% of the time it's gonna be a power head or a plugged up strainer. So best way to clean a strainer, pump the system down, pull the strainer out and clean it. Usually what I do is I'll usually have an extra strainer on hand. So that way I can just pump it down real quick, pull it out. I might do a hot swap on it or I change it under a slight bit of pressure, pop a new strainer in there, wrench it shut, and move on. Was what I might do if the strainer is really dirty. I have heard of people taking, you know, different cleaners and different solvents to clean the strainers too. I don't have one that I use. Maybe some guys in the chat will tell you the different cleaners that they might use. You just got to be careful because, you know, if you use something like, you wouldn't want to be spraying that thing with WD-40, right? Because WD-40 has like an oily substance to it, and that's going to become a contaminant. So whatever you would spray that strainer with, you want to make sure that it's going to completely evaporate and not leave any residue. So be cautious about that. But I usually just have an extra strainer with me. And then, you know, when you go to change it, put the new one in, and then take the old one with you, clean it, and then, you know, you can just keep swapping strainers if you wanted to. Why do some walk-ins not come with hot gas bypass and or fan cycle controls? All right, so that's an interesting question, Anthony. I think that you mean a head pressure control valve, all right? Because hot gas bypass is something totally different. But head pressure control valve or fan cycling controls are a means of head pressure control, and you don't necessarily need them everywhere, all right? And a lot of times lately, they've been really, for Department of Energy regulations and all kinds of weird crap, they've been putting the bypass pressure of head pressures, like head pressure control valves, all the way down to like 150 psi, which basically means they're never ever going to bypass almost, especially on a 404 system. Oh my gosh. But you know, sometimes you just don't need them, right? On the West Coast here, I mean, there's not a big demand for fan cycle controls and head pressure control valves. We have them, but I mean, they can kind of get by without them. The biggest thing about a head pressure control valve, I'm not going to go crazy into those right now, but the biggest thing is that a fan cycle control or head pressure control valve, the easiest way to understand them is they're just raising the head pressure in the system. But what they're really doing is they're maintaining a pressure differential across your expansion valve. This expansion valve needs a certain amount of pressure coming in, so that way it can send a certain amount of pressure out so the valve can perform properly. And if it doesn't have that liquid pressure pushing that gas through at a certain rate, then the valve can't perform correctly and your refrigeration system's not going to perform correctly. So we will use a fan cycle control or a head pressure control valve on the roof to bring the system pressures up, to raise that pressure differential to keep the system operating properly. But sometimes you just don't need them. Here in California, we're in the middle of winter and it was, you know, 75 degrees today. So, you know, we don't have super cold winters. Yeah, every once in a while we have a cold night, but it's not very often. So let me see. Does a new person ride with me before I let them out on their own? Yeah, definitely. So, allow John to link a Sporlan link. HVSR, just to, I don't know who's trying to show a Sporlan link in here. Who's trying to show a Sporlan link? I don't know if I can approve a link. If someone's trying to post something. If someone wants to send me a link for me to put in, send it to hvacrvideos@gmail.com and I'll open it and I'll put the link in. Yeah, I don't know what link someone's trying to post in here right now. Let me see what I was talking about here. I lost my train of thought for a sec here. So yeah, a new person rides with me. That's the way we roll. It's just how I do things. So a new person's going to ride with me for anywhere from 3 to 6 months, maybe longer. Just depends on how much experience they have and how much training they need. And even when I do let them out and get them in a van, they're not going to be thrown to the wolves. I mean, they're going to be put into controlled environments basically to do preventative maintenances and, you know, shadow me on service calls and different things like that. So I definitely do more of an apprenticeship, you know, ride along kind of a thing for quite a while and just try to get people how, you know, used to the way that I do things. Guys, I joke around and say it, but I really am an asshole when I do things. So, you know, I'm very particular about the way I want things done and how we do them. And so, you know, I like people to ride with me so they can learn my ideas and kind of get inside my head and realize the way that we want to do things. So, all right, let's see what else. Let me see. I'm seeing what I'm missing inside. What do I think of Emerson's new controls on the condensing units? I like them. They're not bad. I have a few of them. I actually have one that I pulled off of a condensing unit that I need to do an experiment with. I pulled the whole setup off and pulled all the digital crap out because I was putting it into a refrigeration rack that had a swamp cooler blowing on it, and I figured it would all short out anyways, so I got rid of all the controls. But essentially, guys, if you don't already know, those are just Dixel controllers. Dixel is a company that Emerson, Climate, Copeland, whatever, they merged, they bought, they took over, and they started utilizing their controls. But it's just a Dixel controller that has the ability to see suction pressure. It acts as a low pressure control. and it acts as a discharge temperature sensor. It has a pressure transducer, and they just control the condensing unit. One thing I do like is on their XJ series units, I think, they have a bump start feature. If you don't already know, if you have one of those XJ, it looks like a mini split, but it's a refrigeration condensing unit. It's an X series condensing unit or something like that, but they have scroll compressors. They're kind of tight and stuff, the stuff that fits in there, but the really cool feature they have is they have a bump start feature. So it bump starts the compressor, and it'll start it up and then slow it down, and it ramps things up a little bit. So they have some cool features. I like technology, guys, but I also know that sometimes technology can be a pain in the butt. So you just have to understand how systems work. And this segues me into something else that I want to talk about, and that's understanding things, guys. You know, walking up to equipment, you need to have a general understanding of how it works. I said this on my last stream, and I'm stealing this from Mr. Jim Bergman, but he made a comment in a video a long time ago that you have no business putting refrigerant service gauges on a piece of equipment if you don't already know what the pressures should be. You need to understand how that system works, all right? I know that there's companies that are going to throw you to the wolves, and I know that there's certain people that are going to say that's the right way to do things, but that's not how I do things. I like people to understand before I put them out there and send them out to a customer and charge crazy amounts of money for their hourly wages. You know, I don't like to send someone out that doesn't have knowledge in what they're doing. That's just the way that I roll, okay? Again, I know other people do otherwise, and it's all good. That's the way you roll, okay? But you need to understand how equipment works before you guys go out there and start putting your hands on them and turning valves and turning controls and knobs and pushing buttons, because you can really screw a lot of crap up. You need to understand stuff. The best way I can tell you as a new person or a person that doesn't have as much experience is read. When you're out on a job, take the opportunity, take pictures of everything. Don't waste the employees or the company's time. But when you're out there, take pictures of model numbers, take pictures of compressors, data tags, go home and research them at nighttime when you're not at work. You need to spend hours a night researching stuff. Go to this new Discord server that we're setting up. The link is in the show notes. Ask questions. There's other Discord servers. Go to HVAC-talk.com. Go to HVAC school. Go anywhere and research. Do the work and look things up. You will better yourselves. You will make yourself more prepared. Ask questions. Send me an email. There's other creators. Send them emails. Do whatever you got to do, all right? And research stuff on your own time and look into it, and you'll be better prepared and ready to access or attack everything, you know? All right. Have I ever tried or heard of charging a system from compressor amp draw? Yes, I have heard of that. That is not a practice that I follow. I've heard of people telling me to do that, but I don't buy that deal, okay? If I'm going to charge a system, I'm going to charge it properly. I'm going to weigh the refrigerant in. Now, I might look at compressor amp draw as a metric to help me while I'm looking at a lot of other different things, but I'm not going to solely charge a system off of amp draw. That kind of sounds like to me something that I've heard on the domestic refrigerator side. I know I've heard that for a fact in some residential forums that people will just add refrigerant until the amp draw is this or something like that. But that doesn't really make sense to me, okay? I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with someone about it. I'd love for someone to email me about their method of charging via amp draw, but I don't see how that would work because there's so many different metrics in the system that would change. You know, the amp draw is going to be so much when, you know, the system's under a really heavy load. But, you know, what happens if it's under a really heavy load and you're trying to charge to an amp draw that you're supposed to take when it's not under a load? I mean, there's so many different variables there that I just don't see how that would work. But again, if you have a method and you think that works, send me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I'm not criticizing. I'm always willing to talk and listen. I'd like to hear what you have to say. So let me see what I have to say in here. Or let me see what else I have to talk about. Let me see if I missed anything. Oh, okay. I see a Sportland link. I'm going to pull up this Sportland link right now. And let me see what we got here. Let me pull this up. 1 second. John had posted this. Which literature is this? Oh, the discharge bypass valves. Oh, okay. Got you. Yeah, I'll post this link. So John had posted a link to the discharge bypass valve that I said I didn't even know what it was for. I mean, I have an idea what it's used for, but I don't use them. So I'm like, I don't even know. But yeah, it's basically, guys, if you guys don't already know, and in fact, I'm going to pull this up right now. Hold on just a second. Let's do this. Let's share this because Sportland has one of the best websites out there, guys. So I'm going to do a screen share really quick. Let me transition this over. Let me transition this off. And I'm going to screen share. Let me make sure there's nothing sensitive on my computer screen like there has been in the past. I don't see anything that I can't share. Let me go ahead and pull up this sporlinonline.com. You guys need to go check out sporlinonline.com. I'm going to transition this over. Their information they have on their website is awesome. So they have a tab right here that says literature. All you got to do is click on this tab, and there's so much information. And that's just not one document, right? We hit thermostatic expansion valves, and there's got to be hundreds of documents on this website. So many. Theory of operation and selection. How many times do I get a question in an email that says, how does an expansion valve work? Sporlin has it all on here, guys. sporlinonline.com. They also have a podcast. They actually just released their podcast today. There's so much information on here. You go to the literature. You can go to, let me see if I can manually find the discharge pressure regulating valves. There you go. And I'm sure we can find the discharge bypass valves right here for system capacity control, 90-40. There's so much information, guys. sporlinonline.com. Great, great website, okay? I'm going to transition this off of my thing. I'm going to pull my webcam back up, transition it back over. Definitely check out sporlinonline.com, guys. Lots of great information on there. Let me see what else we got in here, okay? And let me pull. I have to kind of organize things back so I can see what's going on here again. And live streaming. Let's go ahead and pull that over there. Cool. We're back up and running. All right. Let's see what else we got. HVACR Tech, does California have good pizza? No. I mean, you can find a good pizza place, but we're not famous for our pizza. We are famous for being the weirdos that put pineapples and jalapenos on our pizza. Because if I'm going to order a pizza, it's typically going to have tomatoes, pineapples, and jalapenos on it for sure. So that is my favorite pizza. But no, I mean, I wouldn't say we have the best pizza out there. Has anybody guessed the movie yet? I'm curious if anybody got it. I don't see an email or anything. But yeah, I was very curious if anybody's guessed the movie. Let me see what else I got going on inside this chat. Have I heard of Blue On Energy as an R22 replacement? Yeah, I have heard of Blue On Energy. I will have to say they have one of the best marketing pushes for a alternative refrigerant out there. They have an amazing app. I've never used their product. I'm not a fan of using R22 replacements, so that's just my cup of tea, okay? That's just how I roll. Kangaroo God, dude, thank you very much, man. I really, really appreciate that super chat, dude. That is awesome. Thank you so very much. You know, it still blows my mind that people come on here and listen to me blabber for an hour and, you know, send me that's really cool, dude. Thank you very much. So, let me see. So yeah, the R22 Blue On stuff, it's just not my cup of tea using those replacement refrigerants, but yeah. But they have a really cool app. I will say that. I did download the app, and it has the cool thing about their app, it's kind of like Partstown. If any of you guys do restaurant refrigeration, you know that Partstown has an amazing app that has model numbers from like every refrigerator and every ice machine manufacturer out there consolidated in one place. Blue On kind of did the same thing with air conditioners. They consolidated models and serial numbers and installation and operation manuals from almost every air conditioning unit out there, residential or commercial, and it's all within their app. So I give them props for their app for sure. Let me see what else we got here. Oops, sorry, that was my bad. Hit the music there. Is there an easier way to imagine static pressure? I'm trying to think of the easiest way to imagine static pressure. I mean, static pressure essentially is the amount of work that the system is doing to try to push certain amount of airflow through the ductwork. So that's probably not the best way to explain it. Let me think about a better way to come up with that, and maybe I can try to visualize that somehow. So I'll if you think about it, send me an email on that one, so that way I don't forget. I'll even write it on my sheet right here, static pressure, and I'll try to come up with a better way. I try to think of these ways that make it really make sense. So static pressure. All right. Let me see what else I got on this list right here. You're new to commercial HVACR. Do I see electronic expansion valves in walk-ins or reach-ins? Oh, we see them in walk-ins. I actually have a question for you guys, and this raises a great point. I was telling you guys to be prepared. to read up as a new HVAC tech. Read everything you can, right? Even an experienced HVAC tech. I have a restaurant that I have, I've mentioned it several times in my videos when I do stuff that the customer is going to end up replacing the equipment, right? When I work on walk-ins all the time. Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 walk-in replacement equipment setups sitting in the back dock of my shop, ready to be installed. And I need to get to it. Dakota Man, dude, thank you very much for that super chat, dude. That's awesome. Again, thank you so very much. So I like to do research myself too. Have any of you guys worked on the new Heatcraft Intelligent? It's basically the smarter beacon system. It's got the little dial knob right here that you turn and all that crap. I got 2 of them sitting on my back dock, and I've never seen them before. It's time to install them. I'm used to the QRC, which is the dumbed down beacon system, but now I got to install the Intelligent. I don't know how to do it. So I went online today and I spent about 2 hours downloading every single manual I can get so I can read through this fat packet of paperwork right here to make sure that I do the installation correctly. So that's how I approach things. If I don't know how something works, I ask the Google, find out the information. I'm going to do the research. All right. Have I worked on Kramer Thermobank? No, I have not worked on any Thermobank systems. When I have a burnout, do I go back and remove the suction filter and change the liquid dryer again? It really depends. I try to. With certain customers, I try to include it in my price, and I tell them if I have a severe burnout that I want to come back and replace the filter dryers, 2 weeks later or something like that. If they approve it, then I will. Sometimes they don't approve it and they just want to wait and see if something happens again. So it really depends on the customer. I try to get them to, for sure. So you got to remember my stuff, even though it's a quote, the customer has to approve it. So, all right. Let me see what else I have on my list right here. What am I missing? Okay, cool. Right on, Andrew. I really appreciate it. Andrew, I'd really appreciate if you send me an email. hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Let me know if there's any tips or tricks I need to know with the Intelligent system. If anybody else has any tips or tricks, send me an email. I'm always, any tips I can get. It's awesome. So, what do I prefer, residential or commercial? I only do commercial work. So I'm intrigued by some residential work, but it's more or less just because I don't do it. So I just want to try it for a while. Let me see what else. Just check for pressure drop across the suction dryer first. If no, oh yeah, so I see what Michael Bemko's saying. Yep, for sure. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right, guys, throw some more questions in here. I'm kind of running out of topics to talk about. Is it easy to become air balance certified? Tom, the HVAC rookie. No, air balance certification it's not something that is super, super simple and everybody can do. There's a lot of math and a lot of skill that goes into an air balance, a proper air balance. I'm not going to say that every air balance certificate or every air balance tech is an amazing tech, but to do it properly, it's almost like a whole trade within itself. But I will say that I firmly believe that all air balance certified technicians or technicians that do air balance work need to completely understand refrigeration and air conditioning systems. They can't just go tweaking and turning. Too often do I find, and I'm not generalizing everybody, but too often do I find stuff not set up properly after an air balance technician has come out. And again, I'm not trying to generalize them and say they're all bad, but just like there's bad HVAC techs too. I think that people need to focus on the trade. They need to make sure they understand things. I understand why they would have people that don't know what's going on in the system because they are dealing with the skills gap just as much as we are. They have a hard time hiring technicians and they're running out of candidates. So they have to hire someone and just kind of teach them. But I've gotten phone calls from air balance people saying, how do I adjust the dampers on this air conditioner? And it's like, I'm blown away. Like, you're the air balance tech. You don't know how to, get into the circuit board and adjust the outside air dampers? Like, that sounds silly to me. So, and maybe it was just a mistake on his part for not reading the manual too, but I've seen air balance technicians, not trying to say everyone's the same, but I've seen air balance technicians do a test and balance and certify everything was good and then go out there and look at their holes they drilled on the AC unit and they didn't check static pressure drop across the whole unit. They just checked the pressure drop across the supply evaporator coil, essentially. I mean, and anyways, I'm not trying to say they're all bad. Okay. And I don't want to start a shit talking thing. There's good technicians too, but there's some bad ones too. So I wish that people understood how everything worked a little bit better. All right, let's see what I'm missing here. Hit the like button for sure, guys. I really, really would appreciate that. Okay. And I am a fat kid. That's an interesting name, bud. Thank you for that super chat. I like your name, and I like your honesty. Really, man, I really appreciate it. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. I got stuff in my phone right now. Do I use delta temps and airflow to determine system capacity much? JT and H. I actually do. Now, I will say that I use an app, actually Measure Quick. Measure Quick does that for me. Now, I'm not really hand calculating it out. The cool thing about Measure Quick is that it will calculate delivered capacity for you. It will calculate airflow issues for you and do all kinds of stuff using some, I use the field piece air probes, the field piece job link kit, but you can do it with the testo probes. You can do it with all kinds of stuff. But it's not something that I did very much when I had to do it by hand. No, I think that maybe I only calculated system, delivered system capacity maybe 2 or 3 times, just as a hobby, like on my home or something like that. The digital definitely makes it a lot easier to do that. So. There goes my Coke itch again. And let's see what else we got. Do I do any install work for build out coolers and freezers? No, I have in the past, but I really don't do much new construction work. I do mostly retrofit refrigeration and air conditioning. So I'll change a package unit on an existing building for the most part. I'm not running new duct work and changing a package unit or installing, from scratch. And the same thing goes with refrigeration. I don't really build walk-in coolers. I've never done that before. I've been part of building them. I've watched them get built, but I've never done the work, nor do I really have interest in doing that kind of work. We don't do new installation just because we've been burnt too many times by certain contractors. We just stick to the retrofit and service refrigeration because we stay busy enough with that. And I get it too. Oftentimes, I'd rather be able to come in after and say you didn't do it right than be the person that had to not do it right because the customer didn't want to pay. You get where I'm going with that? There's a lot of people out there that are too cheap and they don't want to do things right in the first place. So I'd rather come in and save the day and charge them for my time then, because they're going to have to fix it eventually. And I'm the person that they're going to call to come fix it, instead of them, nickel and diming me and making me do a half-ass install and then someone get called on me. So, just my cup of tea. How many of each field piece job link device do I have? I have no idea, dude. I think I have 2 full sets, maybe. I mean, I've got all kinds of weird stuff linked together that I've picked up over time. So, what is delta T? Delta T is simply a temperature differential. That's all it is. All right. We often will use delta T to indicate the difference between supply air temperature and return air temperature. But the term delta T just simply means temperature differential. That's all that means. So you can have a delta T across a door, theoretically, one side of the door to the other side of the door. But in air conditioning, for the most part, when we say delta T, we just mean temperature differential from return to supply. Not to be confused with what is your TD, the temperature differential across or from, the evaporator coil suction saturation temperature to the return air. That's a whole nother thing. So super confusing, I know. How many degrees across a dryer do I see in order to change it? If I see, it's pretty common to see 3-degree differential across a dryer. If I see anything more than 3, I'm starting to get worried. I'm going to be honest with you. Usually, my customers aren't good enough. Like, I'm not doing that much service that I'm coming out there and checking temperature drops across a dryer on a regular basis. So for the most part, I'm trying to think, like, have I really ever come across a system where I've checked the delta T or the temperature differential across the dryer and I've decided to change it? I don't know that I've ever really had to change a dryer because of the temperature. Yeah, maybe once or twice, actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, I would say like 3 degrees, but it really depends. It really depends. So, yeah, 2 is iffy too. It's hard to say because sometimes, you can install a brand new dryer that is perfectly clean and you'll see a temperature drop across it. So it's like, is that really plugged up? I typically install oversized dryers. So, I usually, if I can, I use a 16 cubic inch for most small refrigeration as much as possible. And then, one thing I will say, if you guys are doing any work on Train equipment, Voyager units, Precedent units, use the biggest dryer you can get in that system. Trains do not, and especially on the suction side, trains do not like suction line filter dryers. And oftentimes, and we're not going to go crazy into this right now, but oftentimes if you go to the supply house and you tell them you need a suction line filter dryer, the only thing they ask you is, what size is the lines, So I've been known to put a bigger filter dryer on there simply because I wanted a bigger one. If I'm working on a 15-ton, train unit, I'm putting at an absolute minimum a 30 cubic inch dryer on it, on an absolute minimum. Usually I try to go bigger if I can, especially if it's on the suction side, because train, they do not like small restrictive filter dryers on their equipment. So let's see what else. Anybody get the movie quote yet, out of curiosity? I haven't seen anything come through yet. All right, let me see what else we got in here. How many? Oh, yeah, I already answered that one. Okay. Well, let's see. You've seen 100 PSI pressure drop on a liquid line dryer on a train unit that had pressure ports on both sides. Blew your mind. Yeah, that was definitely a plugged up dryer. But I will say that, most of the time, something else I'm going to say too, guys. So it's very common to come up on a package unit and see a filter dryer in it and assume that's the perfectly sized filter dryer for that system. And that's not always accurate, guys. Okay. Oftentimes people will put filter dryers in their systems because they know they're clean and dry, and it may not be a very big capacity as far as the cubic inches that it can absorb of crap, basically. Okay. So just because you go up to a train unit and it has a 32 cubic inch dryer on it or a 83 cubic inch dryer on it doesn't mean that that's necessarily sized correctly, okay? So you need to look at the sizing chart on the back of the box. You need to read Sporland's document on properly sizing dryers, and if you can, oversize it. Do understand, though, that oversizing dryers does add extra capacity to the system, so you need to be careful about that. I tell you these things because I know that you guys are technicians, and you could probably figure that stuff out. But, if you go put a giant filter dryer on there, you're obviously going to need to compensate for it by adding extra refrigerant. So there's usually charts on the back, too, that tell you how much extra refrigerant that would add to the system, too, if it's like a critically charged one. So let's see what else I'm missing in here. All right. All right, gents, I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. I really appreciate everybody coming in here, all right? Anything I didn't get to, send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Do me a favor, if you guys haven't already, come check out the Discord server that we have going on. We'll try to get in there. I might spend a little time in there today after the stream, try to communicate and interact with people. There'll be a link in the show notes of this video. Check it out, and I'm going to go ahead and get ready to queue up the outro music. And like I said, if I missed any questions, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and I will try to get with you guys, okay? Other than that, we'll catch you on the next one.